For all the ladies in the audience today, I hope you've all cleaned behind your fridges, because our next speaker is Godfrey Bloom. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. And what a pleasure it is to be here, and thanks very much for inviting me. You're totally committed, aren't you? It's a drizzly, dreek, ghastly day in Milton Keynes, and you've all turned out. Well done you. I just wanted to run a few things past you. It's always difficult to follow Mark, because he's such an excellent exponent of our case and our cause. But I wanted to chuck some other ideas at you to think about a little bit. What is interesting, I believe, is the enormous shift in the dynamic of politics that we've seen in the last 150 years. It's been enormous. It's been enormous. The shift to the left has made politics almost unrecognisable today in the Western industrial democracies. And I spoke, and for those of you who were there a couple of years ago, to the party, Libertarian Party, and I raised the point that Friedrich Hayek had made in his wonderful essay in 1960, Why I'm Not a Conservative. And going back to 1960, and of course just to recap on that, I think it's worth it, is the socialists say, we're going to look after you from cradle to grave, we're going to take care of your education, we're going to take care of your health, we're going to take care of your pension, we're going to take care of where you live. We're going to do absolutely everything for you. The state and the socialist state will do everything for you. Of course, if we're going to do all that, you don't need any money, do you? Why would you need any money? We're going to do everything, so we're going to take all your money, and in exchange, we're going to give you these wonderful things. And of course, on paper, it sounds very attractive, and our Scottish friend down there, yes, very difficult, isn't it? When you go into the election time and say, boy, what are we going to give you? It's going to be amazing. When we're saying, well, not a dime, actually. It's a hard sell, isn't it? It's a hard sell. And of course, especially with youngsters, with young people who go through school, who go through university at the expense of their parents and all the rest of it, who all think there's a money tree, don't they? Youngsters and students, I speak at universities all over the place, and they think there's a money tree. That somehow, because if you're 21, 22, that's how you feel, because you've been given everything all your life, and you haven't yet earned the money with your net at the end. And you can't believe the stoppages. So the difference between a 22 or 23-year-old and a 26-year-old is bloody well enormous, I can tell you. When they've had those deductions, they go, God almighty, what's all this about? What am I getting for this? So that people talk about Brexit and stuff like that, say, oh, you young people, and people change. People change year by year, and that is a very important fact. So what youngsters believe today or vote for today isn't what they're going to vote for in 10 years' time when they've been asked to pay for it. Now, some people never grow up. My wife is one of them. She's 55 and she still thinks there's a money tree. So we've still got horse boxes and horses all over the bloody place because she believes there is a money tree. I am that tree. but I wouldn't change her, of course. Is this being recorded on? Now, I was going to put a little warning out because, some of the stuff isn't politically correct. Sometimes I drift off, political correctness, as you might have noticed over the years, which is why I've been banned from Somerville College by the faculty, Durham University, NUS, Stirling University, NUS. Their reason was because they didn't know what I might say. Which is pretty amazing because I never know what I'm going to say until I bloody well stand up. I've had my, and this will amaze you, I've had my book banned by UKIP. Okay, 2013 and 2014. This one was banned in 2014 at their conference. In 2013, my autobiography was banned because there's a picture of me at my stag night with my face in a very nice pair of tits. And they thought that was absolutely disgraceful and awful, so I was banned from there. 32 years ago. UKIP. You know, come on everybody. UKIP is a bit politically correct. UKIP is if not more politically correct than any other political party. But great guys, a lot of hard-working people. I met some wonderful people in UKIP, really nice people. But libertarian it ain't. It ain't libertarian. Now, I just thought, again, perhaps to pick up on the very good question of how do you actually sell this concept of libertarianism, I'd like to develop a theme from an initial thought by Herbert Spencer. Now, nobody reads Herbert Spencer these days. Except Mr. Brown over there, I think I can see he reads that sort of stuff. A bit of a geek, a bit like me. Herbert Spencer was the definitive philosophical guru in the 1900s, late 1900s. Fascinating, and he sowed the germ of an idea to me, which I thought, if you've got time to sort of to explain it to people, it's not a difficult concept, and it's how do you get by this problem if we're not going to give you anything when you're actually on the stump, you know, because it's usually it's a competition in between political parties at election time to give more of your own money back to you, and that's how the competition works. And of course it's not raised through taxation anymore, it's borrowed. The money's all borrowed. And the fascinating thing is, of course, you can speak to surgeons. I've got lots of friends who are surgeons or nurses in the NHS. My wife worked in the NHS for a while. Loads of friends. You'd be amazed at how many otherwise very intelligent people believe that the NHS is funded out of taxation. They have no concept of borrowing. They have no concept that this social welfare is all borrowed money. They think, you know, you pay your national insurance stamp of a couple of quid a month, and then bingo, you get the NHS. It's a very broadly and deeply held view by people who don't do money, or don't do economics, which of course is most people. Most people don't, do they? People are living their lives of quiet desperation, trying to get through the day, trying to get through the week, and make a buck in whatever they do. But they don't really think about where the money comes from, what the debt is, and of course, as Mark Littlewood quite rightly pointed out, it's our children as yet unborn, our grandchildren as yet unborn, and we're going to have to pick up the tab. But back to Herbert Spencer. Now, Herbert Spencer had this idea, and I think it's quite saleable on the doorstep. Let us assume that we know how much money is spent, we know how much taxation there is, we know the tax on fags, the tax on booze, the tax on petrol, the national insurance. Let's just have a look at that and gallop through the life of the day in the of the poor old working Joe, poor old Englishman. Herbert Spencer suggested that if you could contract with the state, to say, I don't want anything. I don't want anything. I don't want anything from the state at all. But the quid pro quo on that is, I don't expect you to take anything from me. That's the contract. I expect nothing. You expect nothing, and we're all happy. How does that work? Well, what I would say is you contract with the state, you sign a document with the state, the individual, under liberty of contract, under the principles of English law, which we've abandoned long since. You can sign up, and you get a chit. That's, you know, whatever. You know, you get a little chit, Oyster card, that is, but it can be the same. Oyster card. That's actually your laissez-passer. It gets you out of the game. Gets you out of the game. You don't want anything from the state. State can't take anything from you because you've got this pass. So when you go to fill up your car, which normally say costs 50 quid, of which of course 40 quid is tax or so, you go in and you show the pass. And they go, oh, well, that's right, Mr. Bloom, that's super, it's only 10 quid to you, so fill the car for 10 quid. You're not part of the state. You don't pay the tax, you don't ask them for anything. And then when you go to work, you get to work, it's Friday, it's payday. There's no gross and net, you get the gross. So if you're earning £600 a week, you get £600. No deductions, no national insurance, no tax of it at all. You get 600 quid. You stop on the way back for a few pints, getting back to the cigarette that Mark was talking about. your pint, which they charge you £4, say in London, or £3 in Yorkshire, which is where I live there. £2 of that is tax. They could say, that's all right, no problem at all. I'll have 10 pints, which is about my normal wacko. That's 10 quid, because I'm out of the system, you see. I've got my laissez-passer. And I stop in the high street because I need to buy a new dustpan and brush from Mrs. Bloom. It's our anniversary. So there's 20% VAT. Well, that's what I showed them last, and they can let me have that in Boyers in Gould. Don't I step high? And they can give me that for a couple of quid. Bingo. Top stuff. And of course, a new car, you get a new car, 20% of a new car, let's say a new car is 20 grand, run a little car. That's 4 grand in VAT. 4 grand? They steal 4 grand off you because you need to replace your car. It's theft, isn't it? It's theft. We talk about tax and we talk about all this kind of bollocks, but it's theft. By any other name, the state is stealing your money. Now I go back to the, and you can think of your example, get through your working month. Think about that, let's say, think about that, think about that. You've got this chit in your pocket, which actually gets you out of the state's clutches, and that is going to put so much more money in your pocket. You can afford your private insurance. You can afford the new car. You can afford to go to the pub every night instead of every other night. Wow, you know, I'm right up for that kind of thing. So you have this wonderful system, which is extremely saleable on the doorstep. I don't know anybody who actually works for a living. He doesn't work with students because they're back on the money tree. But I bet everybody here will go, I'll have some of that. I'll have a passing, please. You can pay for your own education, or send your sons to Eton, can't you, if you're not paying all that tax, and get an education as good as David Cameron's. He didn't mug up on Magna Carta, did he? I wonder what he did at Eton and Oxford, apart from get upon the piss. I don't know, but you could send your kids to Eton if you're not paying all this blasted tax. So the problem that we have is the dynamic that's moved to the left. It's moved to socialism, and everybody believes that socialism is the benchmark. It's got to quite the sort of ridiculous situation now that the Conservative Party is considered centre-right. All the Conservative Party says, yes, we'll look after you from cradle to grave, we'll look after you totally. We'll just do it more efficiently, and we can let you have some pocket money back. That's what the Conservative, and of course Doris, I call her Doris at number 10. Because she looks like a Doris to me. She's a socialist, for God's sake, people, if, Conservative Party members, if only with that, she's a socialist. If you vote for her, you're voting for socialism. Now, just been given a heads up, though, we've got a few minutes left. Now, it was not ever thus. It was not ever thus. I want to take you back very quickly to Lord Salisbury. The party of Lord Salisbury, taking you back to the late 1800s. Because Lord Salisbury was in fact a libertarian. Now everybody here probably thought Lord Salisbury was high Tory, but I'm just going to run a few quotes past you. This is to the Kingston District Working Men's Conservative. I want a country where people are allowed, so long as they do not hurt their neighbours, to do as they like. I do not mean a country where 6 men make 5 men do exactly as they like. When it is a question of what men should commercially gain or lose by a bargain, Parliament had better let grown-up men settle with each other their own bargains. Liberty of contract under the principles of English law. We don't need employment legislation, paternity leave and all the rest of the bullshit that's given. It's not necessary. Between 2 people, they can contract between themselves in a free society. There's no room for a politician at the table. He says, you can no more act against the operation of great economic laws than you can act against the laws of the weather. Now, isn't it funny he said that all those years ago? Because now we believe we can vote for the weather. All the greenies think that somehow we can vote against bad weather, good weather, warming weather, and all the rest of that damn nonsense. So, his laissez-faire philosophy, believing all Parliament can really do is to free the energies and support the efforts of an intelligent and industrious people. There's loads more. There's loads more wonderful Lord Salisbury quotations, but there isn't time to give them to you. But he's worth looking up. Lord Salisbury, I will put it to you, was actually a libertarian. He was a libertarian. He didn't believe in the state. He didn't trust the state. He didn't trust rules and regulations. And there's so many quotes in biography of Lord Salisbury, it's well worth looking up. I'll just run a question to dear old Mark down there to end with. The European Union is a centralised statist, socialist, broadly socialist machine. That's what the European Union actually is. We all know that. What I'm confused about is why one of the senior IEA economists, Philip Booth, wants to remain in it. Perhaps you'd like to hold that thought. What on earth is he doing? I love him, he's a great man, I've shared platforms with him. What on earth is he doing in your organisation, for God's sake? I haven't a bloody clue. Anyway, there we are. There we are. A great pleasure to see you all again.
Anybody wants anything of Godfrey? No? Oh, hang on, there's one come up over there.
Godfrey, what's your opinion on the Bank of England? Would you be in favour of its abolition?
Oh yes, and the Fed. We need to get rid of them all. All gangsters and crooks. And worse, not even clever gangsters and crooks. They're stupid gangsters and crooks. Just thinking a thought there very quickly, a very quick thought, because Lord Salisbury was also Foreign Secretary, and he spent a lot of his time actually heading off the Russophobes in his cabinet, and the Queen Victoria was a great Russophobe, but in those days we had an empire, it was the route to India, we were a global power, and there was some geopolitical argument that Russia of its time could be a problem. Now, just to give you the heads up, America spends somewhere in the region of 20 times as much on military armament as Russia. It's $1 trillion a year and growing, and President Trump has just signed off even more growth. We are seeing at the moment a drip, drip, drip from mainstream media about how bad the Russians are, what a threat. Bear in mind, this is simply to keep the thing turning. The Cold War has gone, the Soviet Union has collapsed, but we're spending trillions of dollars on armoury, the industrial military complex. We're spending all this money. We've got to have an enemy. The taxpayer won't want to put up with it unless there's a bogeyman. And you're all being softened up by mainstream media to get hating the Russians. All the Russians, let's be frightened of the Russians. Absolute nonsense. The Russians are not an enemy of ours. It's nothing to do with us. Let them do what they damn well like. And the words of Calvin Coolidge, I think, are worth listening to when he was once asked, what would you like to be remembered as President of the United States back in the 1920s? He said, I'd like to be remembered as a president who minded his own damn business.